There's something unsettling about Rumpelstiltskin. You think you know the story, don't you? A little man, strange and deformed, spinning straw into gold. A helpless princess, bound by her own greed, desperate to escape a fate she sealed herself into. You think it's a fairy tale, simple, harmless. But beneath the surface, beneath the whimsy and the magic, there's a darker truth, one that will send shivers down your spine if you dare to look closer. In the version you know, a young woman is locked away, her life hanging by a thread, her future entwined with a man whose name she must discover or face the loss of her child. The deal is struck, and for a time, it seems like a bargain made in desperation. But there's something off about the nature of the bargain itself, something that speaks of ancient pacts, of ritualistic demands, of blood and sacrifice. You see, this is no ordinary fairy tale. It's a story of broken promises, of power traded and twisted. But it goes deeper, far deeper. The roots of this story stretch back millennia, far beyond the Brothers Grimm, to a time when the line between myth and reality was blurred, when every deal made with a stranger came at a price. The Rumpelstiltskin you know is merely a shadow of the real thing. A transformation, perhaps, of something far older and much darker. What if I told you that his name Rumpelstiltskin was not always his name? And what if the dark bargain he struck with the miller's daughter wasn't just an act of greed or desperation, but a ritual designed to summon something older than any kingdom, older than any kingdom's throne? Today, we'll uncover the hidden roots of Rumpelstiltskin's tale. What lies beneath his bargain, and how does it mirror an ancient ritual, repeated across centuries in cultures far and wide? You may never look at this story the same way again. You've heard the story countless times. The version told to children around firelight, to calm their fears with a promise that magic can be used for good, even when it's wrapped in shadows. It begins simply enough. A miller, hoping to impress the king, tells the monarch that his daughter can spin straw into gold. The king, greedy for wealth, imprisons the girl and demands that she prove her father's boast, setting her up for failure. And then, as she faces certain death, when all hope is lost, he appears a strange little man, hunched and wrinkled, with eyes that glimmer like forgotten stars. He offers her a bargain. He will spin the straw into gold, but only if she gives him something in return. At first, she has nothing to offer. But the man is persistent, and he knows how to take what is truly valuable. In exchange for the spinning, the girl offers him her ring, her necklace, her most prized possessions. But the little man, always wanting more, demands more. She promises him her firstborn child, a promise she makes in a moment of terror and desperation, her mind clouded by the weight of her impending death. The deal is struck. The next day, as the king marvels at the mountains of gold, he demands more work from the girl. And again, the strange little man appears, spinning straw into gold, demanding more in return. Each time, the price rises. The girl, now bound by her promise, faces a fate she cannot escape. Finally, when the girl's firstborn child is born, the man returns to claim what is his. But she is desperate. She pleads with him, offering everything she has left, her wealth, her lands, her kingdom itself. But the man is resolute. The bargain, made in the dark corners of the night, must be honored. It is only when she guesses his name Rumpelstiltskin that she wins her freedom. He is driven to madness, torn between fury and despair, and the kingdom is saved. But there's something troubling about this ending. The girl wins, yes, but at what cost? What did she truly pay for her freedom? What kind of world would trade a child for gold? And what kind of being would claim a life, a soul, in exchange for wealth? The little man, though defeated, is never truly gone. His name, his power, his sinister bargain live on in the shadows. And that's where the story ends, or rather, where it begins, because the tale of Rumpelstiltskin is far older than the fairy tale we know. Far darker too. The story of Rumpelstiltskin, as familiar as it may seem, is not a new one. It was first popularized by the brothers Grimm in their children's and household tales in 1812, but its roots stretch far beyond that. It is much older than fairy tales, older than medieval courts, older than any one culture. To understand the true weight of Rumpelstiltskin's bargain, we must journey into the shadows of the past. The earliest known versions of the tale emerge from Eastern Europe, where it was told in various forms across centuries. In these versions, Rumpelstiltskin is often a much darker, more terrifying figure. His name, if it even exists in the story at all, wasn't a word that the girl had to guess, but a name that had power in itself. In many of these early accounts, Rumpelstiltskin is not merely a strange little man, he is a demon, a supernatural creature. Or even a spirit of the forest, a trickster who feeds on the desperation of humankind. One of the most significant early references to a version of this tale comes from 16th century German folklore, where a similar character appears. This figure, who also demands the firstborn child in exchange for gold, embodies the spirits of the wild, forces of nature that could not be bargained with. The miller's daughter was often portrayed as not just a victim of her own greed, but also of a larger, cosmic balance of power. In these versions, the king was less a ruler and more of a puppet, a mere vessel for forces beyond his control. What we also see is the re-emergence of this tale through the lens of social fear, the fear of being trapped in a bargain you cannot escape, the fear of unseen forces pulling strings in your life. It's clear that this story resonated deeply with the human psyche. But where did it come from? To trace it back further, we must consider the ancient roots of the tale, which may lie in older mythologies. The Grimm version, for all its charm, is merely a filtered and sanitized echo of these much more ancient stories. The idea of a mysterious being who trades power for children, for gold, or for something far more precious can be found in countless mythologies across the world. Take, for instance, the tale of the Anansi spider in West African folklore. Anansi, a trickster god, often makes deals with mortals in exchange for their souls. Similarly, in Norse mythology, we have the figure of Loki, the trickster god, who makes endless bargains and pacts with gods and mortals alike, always with hidden consequences. These figures, like Rumpelstiltskin, seem to exist outside of the human world, manipulating fate for their own gain. The bargain itself, the act of giving something precious in exchange for power, remains a key motif in these older stories. From the ancient Greeks' tales of Hermes or Hades making deals with mortals, to the Sumerian myths of deities and spirits who required sacrifices. The theme of offering something vital in exchange for something supernatural was already centuries old. The idea that a seemingly innocent figure like the miller's daughter could unknowingly make a deal with a dark, inhuman force is an echo of these ancient exchanges. Rumpelstiltskin is no simple imp. He is a representative of that primal force, a figure who exists outside the realm of human understanding, manipulating lives for reasons unknown. In the 16th and 17th centuries, with the rise of printing and the spread of fairy tales throughout Europe, the Grimm brothers weren't the first to capture this story on paper, but they were among the most influential. Their version, published in children's and household tales, is the one most people remember today. But the brothers Grimm were scholars, collectors of folklore, and much of the lore they preserved was already centuries old, passed down through generations by oral tradition. In fact, they were particularly careful to record not just the final versions of the stories, but the layers beneath them, the meanings, the motifs, and the psychological resonance. As we will see later, Rumpelstiltskin's bargain isn't just a symbol of greed or desperation, it's a reflection of something far more ancient, a pact that transcends the boundaries of time. In these ancient tales, the bargain was indeed just a whimsical trick, or a simple contract. It was a reflection of the spiritual and moral cost of human desire. These figures, like Rumpelstiltskin, represent an invisible law of the universe. Every action, every choice, comes with a price. And the price. That, dear viewer, is where the real horror begins. At first glance, the tale of Rumpelstiltskin seems simple enough. A trickster strikes a deal with a desperate princess, demanding her firstborn child in exchange for spinning straw into gold. It's a story that's told to children, meant to be a cautionary tale of the dangers of greed and broken promises. But what if I told you that it represents something far older, far darker, than mere morality? The core of this story, the bargain itself, is not just a lesson on human folly. It's an archetype, a mirror reflecting the primal forces that govern the universe. The little man, Rumpelstiltskin, is not merely a peddler of gold or a creature of folklore. He is, in many ways, the embodiment of chaos itself, a force outside the realm of human understanding or control. He is a figure that exists in the space between the known and the unknown, between the mortal world and the supernatural realm. Think about it, Rumpelstiltskin doesn't offer simple wealth. He offers power, the power to turn something worthless, something as common as straw, into something of infinite value. Gold, the power to change one's fate with a single word. But what is always hidden beneath this offer is the price that must be paid in exchange for that power. And in the world of Rumpelstiltskin, the price is never simple. It is always a sacrifice, a soul, a life, a child. Rumpelstiltskin's name itself is crucial. What does it mean? The word Rumpel in German means rumbling or tumbling, perhaps evoking the idea of chaos, disorder, or the unsettling feeling of something turning in the dark. Stiltskin is even more obscure, its exact meaning lost to history, but scholars have speculated that it may derive from old words relating to spinning. Perhaps a reference to the literal transformation of straw into gold. However, this interpretation misses the deeper resonance of the name. It's not just about spinning straw, it's about the turning of fate itself. About how everything, no matter how fixed or immutable it seems, can be undone and remade. The deal Rumpelstiltskin strikes with the miller's daughter is an echo of ancient pacts, contracts that transcend personal gain and speak to the more universal forces that shape human existence. The demand for a child, something as pure, as innocent, as humanly precious as life itself, is not incidental. It is deeply symbolic. Throughout history, children have often been seen as the ultimate sacrifice, the future incarnate, the promise of life and growth. And to trade a child for gold is not just a transaction. It's an exchange of the future for the present, of what is most vital for the accumulation of material wealth. But why a child? What does a child represent in this bargain? A child is a symbol of potential, of the future, of something innocent and pure. By offering the child in exchange for power, the miller's daughter is not merely giving up her firstborn. She is offering up the future itself. She is willing to sacrifice everything to escape a fate she fears, to gain control of her present moment. The exchange is not one of gold for a child, it's an exchange of time, of history, of the essence of life itself. A moment's desire for an eternity's cost. Now, let's explore the archetypes at play. Rumpelstiltskin himself is an ancient figure of the trickster appearing in myths around the world. Tricksters like Loki in Norse mythology or Anansi in West African folklore are figures who operate outside the law, manipulating human beings and making deals with them that come with hidden consequences. They don't just represent chaos, they represent the unknown, the forces of fate and nature that cannot be bargained with. In this way, Rumpelstiltskin's actions embody an important psychological concept, the human fear of the unknown. The moment the miller's daughter makes the bargain, she steps outside the realm of human understanding. She is no longer dealing with a man, a mortal creature. She is dealing with a force that can twist reality, that can reshape the world with a few words, a mere glance. Her bargaining, her desperation, becomes an act of surrender to something ancient, beyond her control. Rumpelstiltskin, then, becomes more than just a greedy little man. He is a shadow figure representation of the darker aspects of the psyche, the part of ourselves that seeks power at any cost. But he is also a reminder of something more cosmic, the ancient and often unseen forces that govern our lives. He is the price of ambition, the cost of desire. And yet, in many ways, Rumpelstiltskin's downfall is inevitable. The moment the miller's daughter guesses his name, the illusion is broken. The hidden power is exposed. And yet, Rumpelstiltskin's rage, his fury at being discovered, suggests something even deeper, perhaps an ancient fear of being named. In many traditions, to know a being's true name is to hold power over it. In this sense, the miller's daughter doesn't just defeat Rumpelstiltskin by guessing his name. She destroys his power, she tears down the veil that has separated the mortal world from the forces of the unknown. The bargain itself, then, is not just a personal transaction, it is a spiritual contract. A soul for a soul, a life for a life. The moment a person makes such a deal, they are no longer in control. The forces of fate, of destiny, take over. They are at the mercy of the trickster, the chaotic figure who bends the rules of the world to his whims. But Rumpelstiltskin's defeat, his unraveling, does not erase the truth of the bargain. It merely shifts it. The tale, once seen through the eyes of the miller's daughter, becomes an eternal warning about the nature of bargains, of deals with the unknown. For in the end, there is always a cost. There is always a price. Now that we've peeled back the layers of Rumpelstiltskin's tale, revealing its dark symbology and archetypal underpinnings, we must look further still. To understand the full weight of this story, we must turn to deep time, the distant past, where this myth took root and grew. We must trace the roots of the tale back to the earliest human civilizations, to a time when stories like these were not just warnings, but reflections of the human condition itself. The Rumpelstiltskin tale is not just a product of medieval Europe or the Grimm Brothers collection, it is a manifestation of themes older than written history. To understand why the miller's daughter's bargain resonates with us still, we must journey back to the very dawn of civilization. In ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, humans first began to understand the fragile and complex relationship between humans, nature, and the divine. This is where we find some of the earliest versions of the themes present in the Rumpelstiltskin myth, specifically the idea of bargaining with gods, spirits, or other worldly beings in exchange for power or favor. In Sumerian myth, for instance, there are stories of deities demanding sacrifices in exchange for gifts of wisdom or material wealth. In some of the earliest known myths, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, mortals make pacts with gods and spirits in an effort to transcend their mortal limitations. The divine, once bargained with, alters the natural order, often leading to unforeseen consequences. The Sumerians, as well as the ancient Egyptians, often associated power and wealth with supernatural forces. But here's where the connection becomes truly striking. In Sumerian rituals, there was a concept known as the Ka, a chaotic force that was seen as the gateway between life and death, between the known and the unknown. This force, much like the figure of Rumpelstiltskin, was unpredictable and dangerous, existing at the very boundaries of human understanding. To invoke this force, to strike a bargain with it, meant venturing into the realm of the unknown, where one's very soul was at risk. As civilization spread and cultures mingled, the myth evolved, taking on new forms in different regions. In ancient Greece, for instance, we find the figure of Hades, the god of the underworld, who strikes bargains with mortals in exchange for their souls or their promises. In the myth of Persephone, we see the power of a deal made in the depths of the earth, a bargain that binds the goddess to the underworld for half of the year. The exchange of a soul, a life, for power is a theme that transcends individual cultures, appearing across Europe, the Near East, and beyond. And yet, the most fascinating connection we uncover lies in the spiritual and metaphysical underpinnings of the tale. Across Indo-European cultures, we see striking similarities to the Rumpelstiltskin story. Ancient Germanic, Celtic, and Norse myths all feature trickster figures, beings who make deals with mortals that seem too good to be true, yet carry profound consequences. Loki, the Norse god, for example, is a shape-shifting trickster who causes chaos, makes bargains, and lives outside the laws of both gods and men. His bargains, though seemingly made for the benefit of the gods, always come with the hidden cost of disorder. In these mythologies, we see a common thread. The world of men, the world of mortals, is governed by rules and laws, but the realm of the supernatural, the forces of chaos, the tricksters, and the gods operates by different principles. The mortals who interact with these forces, who make pacts with them, are never truly in control. The hidden cost of their bargains is always revealed too late, and the true consequences of their actions are only understood once the deal is struck. It's no surprise that these stories survived for millennia. The Rumpelstiltskin myth, like so many others, taps into something universal, the human condition's fragile relationship with power, with the unknown, with the forces that govern the universe but are beyond our comprehension. It taps into the eternal fear that we cannot truly control what we think we can control. A single word, a single decision can send ripples through time, changing not only the individual's life, but the very fabric of existence itself. The idea of bargains, of sacrifices made to gain power, is not just confined to mythology. It's been a part of human history for as long as civilization has existed. In ancient rituals, sacrifices were made in exchange for the harvest, for fertility, for protection from war, or even for immortality. It was believed that humans could connect with the divine, could make themselves heard by the gods, but only if they offered something in return, something precious, something eternal. The very act of sacrifice, whether of crops, animals, or even people, was seen as a transaction with the forces of the cosmos. And so, as we look back in deep time, we see that Rumpelstiltskin's bargain is not just a quaint fairy tale. It is a modern echo of ancient pacts that have shaped humanity's history, from the myths of the gods to the darkest corners of the human psyche. The tale's survival is not just due to its simplicity, but to its primal, timeless truths. The miller's daughter, in making her deal, steps into this ancient current. And just as her story is timeless, so too is the meaning behind it. Now, with the story of Rumpelstiltskin unraveling before you, a strange thing begins to happen. The tale you once thought of as a simple fairy story, a harmless warning against greed, transforms before your eyes. You see it for what it truly is, a timeless echo. A symbol of the ancient pacts between humanity and the unknown forces that shape our existence. The miller's daughter did not just strike a deal with a strange little man, she entered into an ancient, cosmic contract, one that stretches back to the dawn of civilization itself. And Rumpelstiltskin? He was not merely a trickster or a demon, he was a manifestation of the forces that govern the universe, those forces that exist beyond mortal comprehension, waiting patiently for the moment when desperation and desire would lead a soul to make the ultimate sacrifice. As the story comes to a close, We are left with a haunting question: what is the true price of power? The miller's daughter may have guessed Rumpelstiltskin's name, but in doing so, she merely uncovered the veil of an ancient truth, a truth that we are all bound to, whether we realize it or not. There is always a price. The forces that shape our lives, the tricksters, the gods, the spirits, are not bound by the same rules we are. They don't deal in gold. They deal in something far more precious. In the end, the girl is free, but at what cost? What happens to a world where promises are made under duress, a world where bargains are struck in desperation? The gold spun by Rumpelstiltskin, the wealth and power promised, are nothing but illusions. The true cost of her freedom was not a child. It was time, it was soul, it was the very fabric of her humanity, woven into a dark and ancient bargain that has been struck countless times throughout history. And yet, the story of Rumpelstiltskin does not end here. It lives on, it survives in the corners of our consciousness, whispering to us in the dark. It is a reminder that, no matter how much we think we control, the forces that govern us are not of our making. They are ancient, they are powerful, and they demand something in return. So next time you hear the story of Rumpelstiltskin, think twice. Think not just of the miller's daughter, the desperate princess, but of the unseen forces that spin the world. Think of the deals you make, the promises you keep, and ask yourself, what is the price of your power?